Pile of Mopars is back. It's a beautiful day. It's Sunday, and I have some time to work on this beast. I don't know what we call it, if we call it Whale 2.0 or what. And admittedly, work on the Whale has slowed. We probably haven't done anything on it for about 3 weeks now. Probably since before we went to Las Vegas. We did take the seats in for reupholstery and received our carpet, but that's where it stopped, so we will be getting back on that. Anyway, today on this thing, it'll be an overview of what we actually got here and maybe a will it run. The engine, I was told it was seized. From back in the day, they ran out of oil and stuff, and I'm kind of wondering if this is one of those scenarios when somebody maybe misdiagnosed or it was seized at the time because of the heat buildup or whatever, and no one else has looked into it ever since then. The story just got repeated, and that's where we are. So I'm going to actually dig into it a bit and see if it actually is seized, and we'll see if it'll run. I have zero expectations on it. It has been sitting for decades. The carburetor is seized, the throttle shaft, but I have a couple of those Carter 2 barrels laying around that we could use. Anyway, and then I'll show you some wheel and tire options, and we'll do a bit of cleaning on it, and I'll show you the condition of the floors and stuff. It may surprise you. Here is the mighty 318. I'll have a look here at the fluids and see what we're working with. I suspect I won't see anything in here because it's probably drained out and or evaporated to some degree, so there's nothing in there. And also, there is a mark. You can kind of see it right about there. Looks like one of the ribs here. It's got a hole in it. Other than that, the rad looks pretty decent, so I might try soldering that to repair it and see what that gets us. Power steering most likely is empty. They always seem to seep dry and can't see anything in there, so that's probably the case. Let's have a look at the oil and get it in the sun here. So it does have oil in it. It's right at the full, and I mean it is dirty, it's dark, but it is somewhat clear, so there's no indication of moisture in there, if water got in the engine, so that's definitely a plus. And then we'll get that back in there, and let's have a look at the transmission. Although that doesn't stop it from running, but let's just have a look here at the fluid. And if you see, where are we here? You can see it is nice and clear and still has the red color to it. So I'm suspecting, as is usually the case, that the transmission is probably good. Probably leaks like a sieve from dried up seals and not moving for so long, but we couldn't deal with that. And here's the crusty carburetor. You can see all the corrosion crust built up on it. It was a reman at some point, but here, see solid here in the shaft. Now rather than try and mess with that and free it up, I'll just take one of my other ones, bolt it right on, hook it up, and we'll see. The fuel line is just sort of hanging in midair, and here's the line from the back. Kind of loose actually. So if it'll turn over by hand, then we'll just run it out of a jerry can and try and get it running that way. So for now, I think I'm just going to get a socket on that crank pulley and we'll see if it's going to turn over. That'll be step number one. We got our trusty long breaker bar and our 1.25" socket. So I haven't tried this yet. I haven't done anything. I was just waiting to do a video on it. So any bets as if this thing is going to turn? Probably should pull the plugs out and oil the cylinders, but I'm just going to see if it'll turn at all. I was told it's C solid, and yeah, so any bets? Here we go. I'm guessing it's not going to turn, but let's see. Yeah, she's definitely not moving. Yeah, that is nothing moving, not even a budge. Yeah. So, nothing going there. I'll pop the plugs out. I'll throw some WD or some oil in there. Let it soak for a bit while maybe I clean the inside out. I don't have much hope of this doing anything. It's probably a boat anchor at this point. It may be the numbers matching engine, but numbers matching of a 318, nobody cares. So I got lots of engines. I don't have any 318s actually I could switch in there, but in fact, I don't have much for small blocks at all. But a 440, 727 would bolt right in. I've got probably 3 or 4 out of motorhomes, just low compression cast crank engines, which would make a good cruiser, and headers, intake, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'll pop the plugs out, maybe squirt a bunch of oil. I'm not sure which way to go with that, and we'll see where that gets us. I don't know if anybody uses these out there. That's for pulling the spark plug boot off. Really handy little thing, it just hooks on the bottom of the boot and pulls it up. Quite often when you pull on them, they're stuck to the insulator on the plug, and you pull the whole end of the wire apart, but it works pretty slick. So the other thing is these plugs all snapped off pretty easy. I kind of expected to have to fight with them, but they were all loose, and they don't look that bad either. A little carboned up, but yeah. The biggest thing I'm going to look for is signs of moisture in there. Make sure, water hasn't gotten in there, because that's usually the killer of these engines when they sit. And the other thing is, maybe I'll have a look underneath of the block. I wonder if there's any windows in it and there's rods jamming it up. Usually, when you run low on oil, you'll spin a bearing or a crank or whatever on our rods. And, it'll mess things up, but it'll still turn over. It's not going to seize it, but I'll spray some WD on the cylinders and see if we can get it to move at all. But yeah, she's pretty tight. All the plugs are out, and they all pretty much look like that. They're just carboned up from use, but nothing that would indicate this engine was full of water. So I'll spray inside the spark plug holes into the cylinders. I'm going to vacuum all this rodent debris off, and maybe we'll pop a valve cover or two and just have a look and try and assess how bad or how rusty it looks inside. And we'll try and free this puppy up. It's not really greasy, the engine, and so it's really hard to assess how many miles are on it. The last owner figured it was quite low, and condition of the body overall doesn't necessarily suggest that. But if you look at the red on here, it's not all oiled up or something. It's pretty dry as far as oil leaks go, and you can see a little bit of red still on the manifold. So like when these engines were painted, they had the manifolds on, they got overspray, and then that would burn off. So You know, if somebody was just doing a spray bomb rebuild and, you know, didn't mask things or whatever, you're going to get that same effect. So, you know, on the surface it looks like a low mileage engine, but I really don't know. The windshield is original. It's got the date code on the bottom, the Chrysler and everything, but it is, you know, destroyed as far as condition. And it has a inspection sticker on it, dated 1972. So no doubt that is the original windshield. And the other thing, I love looking at new cars / toys like this and doing a bit of investigative work. And so the grill here, a little busted out. It came with another piece, this whole half section, so I'm going to switch that out. But look here on the grill support. So this is not the rad support, but the grill support. And you can see how it's stenciled with these letters and numbers and stuff. So I've got to think that's you know, Chrysler parts over the counter deal. So I think this car has had a front end collision early on. The other thing is, if you look, it's kind of hard to see right in there. And on this side as well, the inside of the fenders are red oxide primer. From the factory, they would have been undercoated for the wheel well. So both of these fenders have been replaced. So again, like I say, it probably was in an accident early on, because if it was too far, you know, mid 70s and later, they wouldn't have bothered fixing it, or they would have used used parts. So this here combined with the two fenders, and then here this has been welded here, and also the hood latch. Where am I here with the camera? There, the hood latch. You can see they put a tack weld here and one over here. So they just tack welded it onto this new panel. So yeah, it's had the collision work, but this car is amazing shape as far as rust goes. I'll show you that in a little bit. While vacuuming the engine here, cleaning it off, I was looking at these inner fenders. You can see how it's really dented here, and another one here. And then up front here, it's quite wrinkled. And that would be the same on both sides. This one's not so dented up here, but you can see it's all wrinkled here. So that would lead more evidence to the front collision damage I had mentioned. And here, if you can see, I have the flashlight set up. The inside of the fender, you can see the orange oxide primer. Normally that would be, not sure if it'd be black, but it'd definitely be undercoated. So anyway, interesting. With the plugs out, I sprayed probably a can's worth of WD-40 in all 8 cylinders to see if we can get decent coverage around all the rings. So we'll let that soak for a bit. I don't hold much promise in trying to get it unstuck from that, but it's worth a try. I got some vacuuming to do. I want to rip out the old carpets and vacuum the trunk and assess the condition of the floors. So far they look really clean. So anyway, we'll do that and let this soak. I cleared out all the junk and vacuumed out all the mouse debris. So this is what we're left with. And if you look, there's some surface scabies here and there, and maybe a little heavier in this spot. But for the most part, it's very clean and no rust holes, not a single one, which is just amazing. It's almost like this car wants to live. A quick overview of the parts that came with the car. Oh, I just noticed, I didn't realize there was a carburetor there that's not seized. Yeah, some letters and stuff from other cars, extra radio, some dash, where are we here? Dash bezels, glove box lids, sun visors, gauges, some hubcaps, spare wheel. I see the base for the jack. Oh yeah, there's the rest of the jack there. And this is the part of the grill that's currently busted on the car. This one's really nice, so we'll switch that out. Spare bumper. And he had some leaf springs I put somewhere here. And then lots of spare chrome. So he had a couple of these cars. He parted out some stuff. Anyway, we'll do our best to replace these parts that we have spares for and make the car as best we can. Shauna doesn't want the car to stick around, and I can't blame her for that because I have a lot of cars, and basically you just get distracted, you know, have spread too thin with your time and your money. But I guess I just have such a passion for these cars that I want to keep them all. So we'll see what we can do. If it were up to me, it wouldn't be going anywhere, and I do need to get, either way, whether I sell it or keep it, I do have to get registration for it. It didn't come with any paperwork, so there's a bit of a procedure here in British Columbia to do that, but it should be totally doable. Anyway, maybe she'll change her mind once we get this ugly top in the down position, and maybe try it out once if we can get it running. Time to dive in to vacuum out that interior. It's pretty nasty, and you definitely don't want to be breathing that stuff in. Here's a little look after I got the carpet and everything vacuumed out. And it's a little crusty, you know, surface rust to be expected, but not a single rust hole. Nothing to weld, so you just coat that up and protect it and move on. I took the sill off so we could get the remnants of the carpet out. And if you look at those rockers, they're perfect. From the top side anyway. I don't know what's behind the trim, but from the bottom they looked really good too. So this is all really good news. And see the back seat here. Again, a little bit of surface scale, but solid otherwise. And then this piece of carpet was under the sill, so I'm going to probably cut this clean section off, and that would be good reference for color for ordering a new carpet if a person was to stay with the same color combination. So anyway, all good news so far. I can't remember if I did a detailed look in the interior in the past video, but I'll just give you a little before picture of what I'm dealing with here before I mask up and cut this carpet out and vacuum everything up. But you can see the generational mouse poop everywhere. But no worries, we'll get her cleaned up. Well, I unhooked the back seat. Let's see what kind of carnage is back here. I gotta imagine it's pretty bad with the mice nest. Oh yeah, there you go. That's a good sized nest. When I was working here, I don't know, about an hour ago, vacuuming, I could hear some squeaking, so it could be a current nest here. We'll find out. More good news. So got both seats out. They seem to be in decent shape. I just vacuumed them. I can't seem to speak here. Bad news is there's no build sheet, but again, not a huge deal. Really doesn't matter. Anyway, not bad at all. Factory speaker. And then back into the inside. Again, very nice. I vacuumed out that huge nest. No rust holes anywhere. Very solid floor. You see a bit of flaking over there. That's not metal flaking. That's left over from the rust proofing when it goes through the dip process. The floor is a little heavily pitted here. And where is it here? Right there. About 5 o'clock on that plug, you can see a little hole. So I'm sure if a guy poked and prodded, you could poke some holes in that section right there. But I think what needs to happen is maybe some rust converter some epoxy primer and then resprayed in the white just to seal it up, and that'll be good. Again, this is not a car you want to spend a ton of money on. The value is just not there, but could be valuable from a fun standpoint. And then nice and clean up there too. Just a bit of surface, but solid, solid. I wish the whale was this solid. It's quite holy. Another exciting part of resurrecting these old cars is putting power to it and see what lights up, what works, and if it'll burst into a ball of flames. I just stuck this battery in, but the posts are on the wrong side. They need to be over here, so it's kind of cockeyed. But anyway, these connections aren't great either. I might have to pull them off and clean them or change them. But let's turn the key and see what happens. Well, look at this. I go to hop inside and the interior light works. That's a good sign. Let's turn the key and see if anything works. I don't hear anything. Just gonna see. I know it's gonna turn over. Let's see if the starter will engage at all. Yep. Heard it click. Of course, it's up against the impossible dream there. Trying to start a seized engine. Let's see if any of these lights work. Nothing lighting up in front here. Let's go outside. Maggie, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? So I turned the lights on, went on a walk around outside. Nothing anywhere. So it could be. Oh, see here. Now my light's gone out. So I'm guessing it's those battery connections. So I'm going to redo those and then try again. Okay, I fit new ends on the batteries. Better connection, and now more lights are working. My son said the headlights were working. One low beam burnt out, and then we had no tail lights, but all the light bulbs are out of those, so kind of expected that. And here's one more thing, which is kind of weird. Listen. So it turns out the engine is not seized, but I sure couldn't turn it over with the breaker bar. So I think what I'll do is pop the valve covers and back off the rockers just in case some valves are stuck. Well, isn't this interesting? I popped the valve covers, and of course it's quite crusty in there, kind of what I expected. But mechanical adjustable rockers. Now, I'm not aware of 318s having this. This car is coded for a 318. I'm not sure if, did 67 318s come with mechanical cams or adjustable rockers? Looks more like what a 273 would have. Of course, these cars, I don't believe they came with a 273, but this car is coded for a 318. And it's also got the single plane intake manifold. It's just a two barrel, but it's a single plane. I know 273s had that, but I'm not sure if the early 318s had that. So maybe someone could make a comment. But what I'm going to do now is have my son crank it over, and we're just going to check for stuck valves. So let's see what happens. Ready? Yeah, okay, crank. Okay, stop. Everything's good on this side. I'll go to the other side. There's no stuck valves. They're all moving. Let me get a good view here. Okay, go. Okay. Yep, they're all moving, so no stuck valves. And as you can see, crank it one more time. Yeah, good. As you can see, nothing is seized. So, like I said earlier, thanks. What happens is somebody gets the story or a misdiagnosis back in the day, and then everybody just keeps repeating what they were saying, and no one actually digs into it. So, It's definitely not seized. With that being said, maybe since the plugs are out, I could take a compression check, see the state of it. I don't think we turned it long enough to hear any rod knocking or anything like that, but maybe we'll put some new gaskets on here, or keep cranking until we get oil pressure up top, I guess. Then put some gaskets in, and rig up a jerry can, switch the carburetor, check for spark, and see if it'll run. Shauna was just cranking it over so I could check compression, and look at this. That is usually the first thing to stop working. Unbelievable. Okay, well, here's where we're at. I've been messing around with it, I did a compression check on all of them, and they're extremely low, like not enough to start the engine. And then I oiled the cylinders, or oiled the rings, to see how it changes. And how that works is, here, I'll show you what I ended up with. So this is the dry column. This is just I started doing compression checks, and then you add oil. And the theory or the idea behind that is you wet the rings, you increase the compression, and if they go up substantially, then you know the rings are the problem. Otherwise, if they don't change, then it's more of a valve issue. So I didn't bother doing this side. There's no point in wasting more time, because this is what we're left with here, and none of that will start the engine. So it definitely, on the good end, it's not seized. On the bad end, it's never going to run, because it's got some internal trauma, you could say. And the other thing I noticed, with all the cranking I'm doing, I'm not getting any oil up here in the rockers. Normally you should have oil coming out all these little holes here, but there's nothing. So, and it's got the proper level oil, and it doesn't look that bad. It's not sludged up or anything. I suspect maybe the oil filter's plugged or come apart, and it's not transferring the oil or whatever. But there's no point in putting a new oil filter on here, or wasting a new oil filter and oil on something that's not going to run with those compression numbers anyway. So I think that's going to be the end of this power plant. I'm definitely not going to put $5,000 into rebuilding it, so it'll have to come out. And if I find a used small block that runs good as is, which are pretty common, I could do that, or I could go the big block route. There's just a little more involved in that, as far as, linkages and stuff like that, and radiators, of course, to cool it. I should have all those parts here and there, so we'll see what happens, but it's definitely, the answer is it's not going to run. There's my buddy.
Because it is pre-7
nice color.
Yeah,
I love that color.
Brings up Paul Modi and Lance Lukeberg.